myself that Kina and I are moving into a house on the ground floor today. But I know that once we start looking around, I'll feel nervous again. Not just nervous, but anxious, as if the act of leaving my old home would somehow be sullying the memory of my deceased mother, father, and sister. I shake off the thought and continue down and down until, finally, I reach the front doors of the building and push my way out into the heat and the blinding light. I move carefully through the rubble, through the charred streets and hunks of melted metal that might have once been vehicles, until finally I come to a warehouse near the factory district. I have to be careful now. I'm not the only scavenger around. There are many survivors of Happy's War, some alts still bent on carrying out their artificial leader's orders, some regulars who survived because they were on the drug ebb at the time, even the occasional smiler, humans driven crazy by the bioweapon that was delivered through the Earth's rain supply. Most smilers are dead now, though. Those of us who only want to survive have not yet found a way to communicate, and we avoid one another, scared that each living soul is a threat. I enter the warehouse through a hole that was blown into the outer wall at some point during the final moments of the war. The entire place has been picked over and ransacked, leaving the shelves almost empty, but there are still some vacuum-sealed packs of fruit and sacks of rice. Once I have gathered some basic supplies and secured them in my backpack, I move down to the last part of the river that still had enough water in it to sustain life and check my traps for fish. Nothing. I make my way back to the Black Road vertical, moving carefully, quietly from building to building, listening for movement, watching for signs of life. I make it safely back to the impossibly tall building and begin climbing the stairs. Now, with the added weight of the food on my back, I have to take several rests along the way. Once I reach the 177th floor, I leave the bag at the front door of our apartment and carry on up to the roof. It's strange being back up here, back when my sister and I stood in shocked silence as the boy had fallen to his death. It had been Molly who had pushed him. She'd had no choice, he had a gun pointed at her head, but self-defense wouldn't have worked in a court of law, as it was us who were robbing him in the first place. I had taken the blame. I had confessed to the murder of Jaden Roth and had been sentenced to death. That's where it all began, I think to myself, staring at the spot where the boy had fallen. I was sent to the loop, became a test subject for the Smiler vaccine, and I survived the war. I looked to the other side of the rooftop, the place where my father, infected by the Smiler disease, used his last reserves of life to tackle one of Happy's hosts off the edge and save my life. Defeating Happy came at a high cost. I can feel the surge of emotion inside me, and I fight it, push it down and away, and focus instead on the garden. It had taken 2 days of almost constant work to carry up the wood that makes the frame of the garden and the soil that fills the frame. I had planted carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, and green beans. There are signs of life, small shoots growing out of the tomato patch and tiny leaves sticking out of the soil where the carrots are. I use the bucket to scoop the smallest amount of water I feel I can spare out of the rain collector and pour it onto the vegetables. When is it going to happen, I think, looking out over the city, breathing in the warm air. When is it going to happen? I think back to the block, the most torturous, cruel, agonizing place I have ever had the misfortune of being inside, and I think about how I got out of there. Has it really been 20 days? 20 days since the explosion, since the gunfire, since the screams and yells? The entire building had been bombed by Pod and Igby. They had calculated the exact amount of explosives required to blow away the back wall and leave the prisoners alive. Then they, along with Panda, Akemi, and my sister, had stormed the building, killing the guards and dragging us from the paralysis beds. 20 days. So much has happened since then, and yet it feels like nothing has changed at all. I look out over the city, to the bend in the river where me, my sister, and my parents used to go on sunny days. I look to the horizon where the morning sun blazes as it climbs ever higher. When is it going to happen, I wonder? All of this burned-out city, this burned-out planet, it's all futile. The human race rising up out of the rubble seems impossible, and yet it doesn't matter. It's not real. This is not real. I breathe in deeply, feeling the warm air in my lungs and make